like to ask the Treasury Minister what discussion the Treasury and the Financial Services Authority have had with banks regarding service standards, particularly regarding the time taken to open an account and to change bank mandates.
Well, the Honourable Member for Ayr and Michael, Treasury Minister Mr Cannon.
Mr President, the Financial Services Authority regularly meets with all the Isle of Man's licensed banks to discuss a wide range of regulatory oversight matters. As part of this process, banks will share current complaint statistics and any key trends. The authority also receives information from consumers and has meetings with the Office of Fair Trading to understand any concerns and complaints that the Financial Services Ombudsman may be dealing with. If any areas of concern exist, the authority will discuss these with the relevant bank and obtain details of the action that they are taking to resolve matters. There is regular engagement between the authority and the Treasury, as well as regular meetings with the Isle of Man Bankers Association, which provides additional opportunities to discuss any issues at a wider sector level. In the first instance, Mr President, customers who have concerns regarding the service they receive should contact the banks directly to give them the opportunity to see if matters can be resolved to their satisfaction. To further assist consumers, the authority has also published guidance on making a complaint about a regulated entity. This guidance can be found on the Financial Services Authority website and contains all the relevant contact details.
Mr Speaker.
Thank you. The Treasury Minister will be talking to businesses and individuals, as well as the Financial Services Authority and the banks. Does he recognise that there are issues here affecting a significant number of customers, especially around opening an account and changing bank mandates?
Treasury Minister.
Mr President, I would say that the authority has not seen any negative trends in relation to account opening. Some concerns have been raised with the authority in relation to bank mandates, and the authority has been in dialogue with a particular bank regarding this subject. I would say to the Honourable Speaker that we are all aware that from time to time we receive complaints from individuals or businesses about their inability to open accounts or the time that it's taken to open accounts. By the same token, I would also say to the Honourable Member, these appear to be individually based, often have different circumstances behind them, and as the Honourable Member will know, when he publicly called for evidence on his Facebook site, he received some members of the public who were very willing to compliment the banks on the speed that it had taken for them to open their accounts. So a lot of the evidence, I'm afraid, is circumstantial, Mr President, and I believe the correct route is available for those who may hold a grievance or are concerned about the abilities of the banks to perform their duties satisfactorily.
Supplementary, Mr Morehouse.
Thank you, Mr President. The banks must feel very reassured by the answer. To clarify, does the FSA respond directly to specific customer concerns, and has any additional information been provided on excessive charging and the closure of accounts with no reason given?
Mr Cannon.
Well, as I said, Mr President, I have received no complaints on excessive charging by the banks, and indeed, again, I would urge anybody who believes they have been excessively charged to refer the matter either to the Financial Ombudsman or directly to the FSA for advice, or indeed their MHK. So I have no evidence at the moment that would lead me to want to pursue any formal action against any banks. And in terms of individual circumstances, one must recognise that I'm sure the Honourable Member, as we all have dealt time to time with specific cases, that it is not, the banks are not and will not release their reasons to members, or indeed are obliged to release such reasons to Financial Services Authority as to why they have declined to offer banking facilities. That, Mr President, is a matter for the banks, and I'm afraid one of which we have very limited control over.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Thank you. Can I suggest to the Treasury Minister that the reason that he has no evidence one way or the other is because the Financial Services Authority doesn't actually routinely collect information on the number of complaints or their type. They do it on an ad hoc basis now and then, but there is no routine collection. Is the Treasury Minister content with that as a way forward? And secondly, in terms of the issue around bank mandates, certainly I've had personal experience of being on the board of 3 different charities who bank with the Isle of Man Bank, who have taken in excess of 3 months to process a mandate, in one case, almost 6 months without even coming back with any queries. So does the Treasury Minister not fear for the fact that this is the third sector, it's taking up an awful lot of volunteer hours just for people and charities to be able to go about regular routine banking business?
Treasury Minister to reply.
Mr. President, I am, as I've said, well aware that in this day and age it is taking longer, much longer than it has taken previously often to open bank accounts, and that some banks do choose to study carefully what charities and how charities are provided with banking finance. I would point out that this court has supported Financial Services Authority in applying a regulatory framework that applies to all banks operating in and from the Isle of Man, and it does expect all licence holders to act with due care, skill and diligence in carrying on regulated activities. There are no timescales set by regulation for a bank to open an account or change a bank mandate. The timeliness of such activities, Mr. President, is subject to the customer's receipt of and supply of documents that meet the requirements of anti-money laundering legislation and the framework operated by the bank themselves to prevent fraud. Account opening and changes to a bank mandate cannot be completed by regulation until these requirements have been met.